How's it going, Rishi? It's really good to finally have you on. I feel like we've been trying to schedule this thing forever, and then my kid came along and kind of messed up my whole world. So I appreciate your flexibility with everything.
Absolutely. First of all, congratulations and great to be on the show here.
I like starting off all of my guests with getting their background and really understanding, what made you get into IT, what made you get into security specifically. And I always find it helpful for my listeners that are getting into security, right, to hear someone else's different perspective and to know that no matter where they come from, it can happen for them.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question, Joe. I think I've been in security for a very, very long time. I think my first exposure was the company Solid Core in 2003, which I joined as one of the early engineers. And I think how I ended up there is knew a friend who was the founder of Solid Core, went and talked to them. But I very vividly remember what excited me, and this is what continues to excite me about security. Is security is one domain which is we are always on this edge of innovation. There is always a cat and mouse game going on. The bad guys will find something, and then you'll try to protect it, and then something else happens, and you try to protect against it, which keeps the life exciting and interesting, right? You're always innovating, you're always fighting, and that's I think what I find most fascinating in the world of security.
Yeah, I have to agree. That's probably the thing that got me into security. Probably like 10 years ago at this point, right? Is the ability for you to always learn something new, something different, the ability for you to choose a topic that might be a very niche, small area, and you can just dive deep and learn as much as you want about it. Like you could
Yeah,
spend an
yeah,
entire career focusing on like malware on Macs, right? And
yeah.
reverse engineering the malware, and you wouldn't know everything. You could even be writing the book and you not know everything. And that's the part to me that's very enticing because for me, I don't know if I have an ADHD mind, right? But it's like I need to be occupied. I need to be focused on something completely, or always driving towards something. So it's helpful that my career is like that.
Very true. I think, by the way, you have a very good point. It's like security just with this. You can start, and on the surface, it looks nothing. Then you peel the first layer, it's like, oh, there's something more. There's something more. And that's kind of the world of security, whether you're looking at vulnerabilities or whether you're responding to an attack and incident response, no matter which field is, there is a lot to take in.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where you're troubleshooting something or you're trying to investigate something new and it's just not working out for you? You're not getting it right and you're getting potentially, frustrated. How do you overcome that?
Yeah, I think many times. I think the situation is, especially when you're trying to investigate certain types of problems. I think from my perspective, one is take a break. I think I'm a big believer. It's like if you're at something too long in the single sitting, doesn't work. Take a break, go for a walk. I'm a big believer in take a nap. Uh, go really take a break, and then uh, step back and look at it different angles, right? I mean, I think from a problem solving perspective, you always run into this, which is okay, what have I all tried? Try to move away from screen. I have this habit of go scribble on the paper, says, what is given to me on paper? This is all that's given to me. What am I trying to find out? This is what I'm trying to find out. What did I already look at? What did I not look at? And then go solve it out, then come back to the screen. I think it's one of those things which taking the breaks helps you look at what you have not looked at, right? And then go with a fresh perspective. And
Yeah, great that's a great point of view, great piece of advice that I feel a lot of people can learn a lot from because this career, this field isn't as straightforward, right, as some would hope or dream, right? And
Yeah,
you're going to take a lot of turns, you're going to take a lot of curves, right? And it's going to feel like you're going around in circles when you're embarking down these new paths in security, or really in IT overall. And it's important to kind of break away, kind of reset your mind. Something that I do that I think is really beneficial is sensory deprivation tanks. Is it allows me to disconnect completely for 60, 90 minutes, and really focus on what I want to focus on, kind of reset my mind, clear out all. I view it as like clearing out all the junk, like I
yeah.
reset my mind, I get rid of all the mess in there, and when I come back out, I'm like ready to tackle the world, right? Like it's fantastic. Have you ever tried something like that?
That's actually, I mean, I think very similar. Is like to me, nap is like that, right? It's like sensory deprivation, as you said, or meditation. I mean, I often do that. It's like, okay, just lie down, play some soothing music, breathe, and disconnect completely. And it definitely does help.
Yeah, I'm investigating different ways of accomplishing the same thing, but like at my home. I want to eliminate the commute or the journey, right? Like eliminate as many excuses as I can to really accomplish it because it's so beneficial. But talk to me about your career after that first company. Where did you go? What did you specialize in? How was those
Yeah,
experiences, and how did you build up to your current company that you founded with Descope?
yeah. So basically, my career has been mostly, it started as an engineer, so very hands-on, very technical. The job that I was telling you in 2003, I joined, I was one of the early engineers, but I was also working very closely with the customers. So went talked to the first set of customers who were using our product, and that gave me a very good perspective on how does a customer use a product that I built. And that was the beginning of, I call, understanding the product management career and understanding how do you understand the customer's problem? How do you translate that to product features? How do you go build that feature in? So I think with that company, I was there for a good 6 years, which and then got acquired into McAfee, where after the acquisition, I ran product management for one of the business units. And that is where I met my co-founders. So my story is like met these co-founders by acquiring their company into McAfee. We became really good friends. Um, Worked together at McAfee for a few years, and then said, "Okay, let's go do something." And at that point of time, we left McAfee, looked at what the possible ideas are, and then started on our first company together, Demisto. Um, and that was an amazing experience as an entrepreneur to be able to go say, hey, how do you identify a real problem that customers are facing? Take that problem, craft a creative solution, build it, sell it to customers, build a full life cycle from a product starting of the first line of code to selling and deploying that product. And then in 2019 is when that company, we sold it to Palo Alto Networks, spent a good 3 years there growing that business. And then last year is when we started Descope because we said, okay, time to really go back. I call go back to square one and get started once more.
Hmm. So are you learning different things or different aspects of building a business and being successful with it each time that you found a new company, or go down this different path, right? Because it seems like every time that you do this, it's a little bit different, right? Maybe it's a little bit of a different area of security, still mostly the same domain of security, right? um
Yeah.
but it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you're learning different things each time you do it, or is it more of you mastering the same techniques?
It's it's slightly different every time, Joe. I mean, if I look at it, one, the security space has become very, very broad. I mean, it's become really broad, lots of different fields. I remember about 10, 12 years ago, there used to be endpoint security, network security, and that's it, right? I mean, cloud security, data security, app security, you name it, right? I mean, the security field has grown a lot. And I think uh, that's the beauty of it. Now you have variety of things. So each of these companies and products that I've built and grown, the reality is that they are different. The users are different, but at the same time, they do have similar characteristics at the core of it. So I feel that every time we build a new product or start a new company, you are exercising and learning little bit different skill set, but applying the same principles uh, to get started. Like a principle that you apply the same as you have to understand the customer problem really well. So you go through the same customer discovery, understanding the problem. Then you need to go figure out your go to market motion now that you understand your customer really well. So you apply the similar principles, but you still learn on the way because these are different domains, these are different products.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. When you're learning about the different challenges that your customers are facing to determine, what solution to build and provide to really fit that need, are you talking with other customers and going to them and saying, "Hey, what other areas, are you lacking in? What other areas do you need help in? Are you doing kind of like I guess a crowdsourced part of your research where you're reaching out to contacts and learning more about their environment, or are you doing it a different way?"
Absolutely, yes, we are. I think to me, I call that customer discovery or use case discovery. That is exactly what we are doing, right? We start with a set of questions, always says, let's look at it, right? For example, in Descopes, like, okay, what is your authentication system in the app? What do you use for authentication? How do your users log in? What kind of users are they? Where are they coming from? From different geos, same geos. So you have a whole bunch of questions. And then you go into a conversation with the customer, ask these questions, but also um, be open about it. Like if the conversation takes you into a different direction, you learn a new thing, be open about it because in some scenarios you may find a new use case or find a new product idea if you're open about it. So yes, the at the core, you create a set of questions, you go interview customers, you see what are their pain points from those answers that come in, and then come to the conclusion of what would you like to build.
Hmm. Interesting. So at Dscope, let's talk about the problem that you're solving. What is the problem that Dscope is solving in the industry right now?
So I think the core of the problem that we are solving is how do we enable applications to have passwordless authentication?
Hmm.
So really the biggest challenge that I see if I look at uh, any of the apps is identity or authentication is the first touch point the customer or the user has with any application. And when you put in a username and password box in front of them, there are a few set of challenges arise. And this is, let's talk specifically for a B2C app, a consumer app, let's say a retail website or a finance solution of some sort. Now, you put in a username, password in front of them. Uh, what if the user forgot their password? Now they're going to reset the password and try to do all of that. So that's friction. If it is a retail website, they had created an account while they were on their mobile, forgot to save the password, come in, try it, now don't know it, they're most probably going to walk away. They're not going to spend time to reset the password because they were trying to get a deal. And if you don't give them the deal in split seconds, they're going to walk away. So that's one problem, which is the user friction problem. The second is majority of the fraud uh, is because of stolen passwords. Like if you look at the Verizon data breach report from last year, 80% of the breaches were related to identity and stolen password kind of problems. That's a huge number. I mean, so the root thing, what we are trying to say is you are an app developer. We can help you develop any authentication mechanisms in your app with ease, with a special emphasis on passwordless authentication methods for the applications. And they could be OTP over email, OTP over SMS, SAML, social logins, biometric, passkeys, you name it. But I want to just get rid of that password from our lives because it's such a big problem, both from a security perspective and user onboarding perspective.
Yeah, I guess that that really answers my what would have been my next question is why does it matter to move into this password key or passwordless, revolution of IAM? And I talked about this a little bit on LinkedIn fairly recently of how, I was a very big advocate for LastPass. Loved their platform for 5+ years, and then with the breach, and I'm a security professional, like I can't in good conscience be a customer of
Yeah.
LastPass after that breach. And so I went on the arduous journey of finding a new password manager, migrating over to that new one, resetting everything. Um, it's a pain. It's a pain to say the least, right? Like, so now, now that I've dove into this world a little bit more, right? Whenever I'm offered a passwordless or like an SSO
Yeah.
like experience where I can
Experience,
log
yes.
in with Google, it's like, okay, I'm doing that, 9 times out of 10. Like, there's no reason for me to manage this password and have to figure it all out. Like, you guys handle it.
Completely agree. First of all, I commend you for really moving off of a password manager. It's not easy. I mean, it's your life, right? I mean, all the
Right.
passwords and one by one moving over. But you nailed it on the head, right? I mean, the real question here is one path to being passwordless is exactly social logins. And I encourage every app developer to say, guys, your users, if they give them an option, give them a Google option, give them a Facebook option, whatever your choice. But then I think even an OTP with a phone number or OTP with an email address is more secure than a password, right? I mean, you could literally say, I'm going to do an OTP over phone or OTP over email. That's perfectly fine. And that's way more secure than a password because guess what? If you're using OTP over email, that's what email is all it takes to reset a password, also, right? So
Hmm.
you're assuming your email is secure. And if your email is secure, then yeah, might as well OTP over email. Don't need to worry about password. Never going to forget it. Don't need a password manager. No migration. Nobody can steal it because there is nothing to steal. So very, very important. And we are seeing this trend, by the way. A lot of the large retailers we are working with are actually going and considering technologies like passkeys, biometrics, social logins to be their only password methods. Sorry,
Hmm.
to be their only authentication methods instead of passwords.
Hmm. So, okay, so I guess I have a whole new set of questions, so to speak. So, how does Descope differentiate themselves from other SSO like centralized authentication mechanisms or solutions like Okta? Right, Okta is the biggest one that I'm thinking of. How are you guys taking it to the next level? Because maybe this is an area that legacy, and I would actually include Okta in that legacy discussion, right? Because they've been around for so long now at this point. Um, how, what's the difference, right? Like, where's the value add?
Yeah. So I think our whole one mission has been is how easy can we make implementing authentication? And that's the huge differentiation. If you see what it takes to implement Descope into an app with all different capabilities, including multi-factor auth, different authentication methods, risk-based authentication, conditions about geo, like if you want to customize that
Hmm.
user from one geo logs in with one method, all of that, and I promise you, you can really integrate within a matter of minutes. And there's
Oh,
demos and videos that we have out there. Like for an app developer, my simple question is, why should a new app developer need to worry about authentication? Why should they worry about integrating with Google is code and then integrating with Facebook is different code? It should be drag and drop. I mean, our tagline is drag and drop your auth. And I think that is our value prop, which is, can I get that to you in minutes so that you are building your app and not worrying about authentication? And that's where our entire focus has been. We have seen customers build full-fledged apps within a matter of hours with full authentication and validation and everything else.
wow. That's huge. Working years ago, I worked for a company that built an application that was deployed in the cloud and on prem, and me being the security person that I am, I started tearing apart the application, and we basically had to rebuild the authentication mechanisms by the end of it, because it was just so insecure. They were trying to authenticate different ways that they shouldn't have been trying to do. And that was a huge headache. That was like 6 months of work, maybe more, right? Of doing it, testing
Yes.
it, me failing it, them doing it again, like even, me training them, right? And I recall back when I was learning Okta and trying to deploy Okta into an environment,
Yeah.
the training alone for that was a week. And at the end of it, I felt like I needed another week of training. And so to hear that your solution is much easier, it's kind of like that new evolution,
Yeah,
of SSO, of
exactly.
authentication. It's relieving, but it also makes me want to get my hands on it and test it out, to be honest.
Yes, by the way, I think one of the other things, very good point, Joe. I mean, we really invested in very strong documentation, making it self-service, very broad free tier. I mean, if you look at the users today, and we see a lot of these people signing up, they don't want to be bothered by anybody, right? I mean, we do of course offer help if they need help, but they don't want to talk to somebody and schedule a meeting before they get started. They want it, can I start it now? Can I build something on my own? And when I need help, I come to you. And that's the model that we are trying to encourage, which is we are here to help, but the product should be as simple as you come in, you sign up, look at some sample code, implement it in your app, and you're done.
Hmm.
And that's what we have done. Tons of videos, tutorials, a lot of help for people to self-serve.
Yeah, that's where my procrastination always infamously kicks in, right? Is when I start thinking about a problem and it's like, oh god, this is going to take so long. I don't want to do this. I start procrastinating about it. And recently I encountered this with something. I think I was trying to make a modification to my site or something like that, and I was like dreading it for 2 weeks. And then come to find out is like a 30-minute thing, and now it's going to take me 2 minutes because I already got the template. you know um it's
Yeah.
like it's like breaking out of that mentality.
It's very true. We even joke around. We do some funny T-shirts. One of the tagline we have had is "Authentilate," which is when authentication delays your sprint. Is what we'll call Authentilate. So I think I says don't procrastinate. Huh?
Yeah, right.
Don't
It's like
authenticate.
maybe like a so easy it's scary type of thing. Maybe that
Yes.
would go good on
No,
a
I think,
shirt.
yeah. Uh, it's so easy that it's scary. That's actually a good one. I'll probably consider that. We'll give you credit.
Yeah, right. That would be awesome. But is this where you see everyone going with authentication? I start thinking about Microsoft, right? And how Microsoft wants to go passwordless and involve biometrics in their authentication for you to just log into your at-home PC, right? And Google was talking about doing something like that, and Apple has already been doing something like that to some extent. Um, do you think that there would also be another iteration, something beyond that, right? Because, kind of like we mentioned previously, right? This field is always changing, it's always moving.
Yeah.
The attackers are always
Always new
finding new
things.
ways, so I wonder if, yes, this is the next generation of authentication, but I wonder what comes after it because, I mean, to me, right, someone that isn't in this specialty necessarily, to me, it looks like this is the end all be all, right? Like this is the next wave and that's it. But maybe there's something else.
Yeah. So I think, sure, there's no, I almost say the authentication methods have been evolving over the last 50 years, right? I mean, passwords have been around way longer. So I'm not saying this will be the last iteration, right? I mean, biometric, FIDO, passkeys, all of these have come around now. There will be iterations. I think what is clear to me is there is enough factors that are now available to get rid of passwords. That's step one, right? You
Hmm.
mentioned social as your preferred way, social login or OAuth. Similarly, there's other methods. And by the way, that is exactly why I kind of tell people says design your authentication layer to be standalone. Whether you use an outsourced service such as Descope or you build it yourself, but keep it separate than rest of your application because as new things arise, if you're using something like Descope, then you would be able to drag and drop a new method, remove the old method, and you're done. If you build it yourself, still keep it in a separate layer so that you can change it, evolve it, and it's not all tied into different pieces of the application. But I feel I'm bullish on Fido and Passkeys that will be real. I think people are debating will it be real, will it not, how much adoption will it get, but they improve the user experience and security quite a lot. So I think we'll see a lot of Fido adoption, a lot of Passkeys adoption, and then I think there may be variations of these that will emerge over time.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Even in my own, on my own personal tech side of things, I've
Mhm.
explored doing like FIDO authentication on some, I guess, sensitive devices, that I've worked with that maybe have access to a lot of different information and whatnot. I've explored it. I've also thought of, like, I guess like dead man keys, right? Like, how does my wife get into my computer with it still being secure? And if I'm not
Yeah,
here, like how is she able to
yeah,
access the things that she needs to? And so we're going into an interesting place where I feel like, like you said, the capabilities are catching up to the demands where we're able to do some of these things that, really previously, 10 years ago, really only a few government agencies were doing. And now everyone's able to do it. It's more consumer centric. Do you see
totally.
potentially, do you see potentially um, a solution at Dscope that is more consumer based from a perspective of the general public, right? Like I mentioned LastPass earlier. LastPass is, you
Yeah,
know, main consumer base is, the average person, right? Not necessarily
Yeah.
companies from what I understand at least, right? But do you see that being a market that you grow into?
Um, Again, nobody's seen the crystal ball, Joe. I think who knows, but I would say, given where we are currently and our focus, not for the next couple of years. And I'll tell you why. I feel we can create a larger impact by helping app developers. So here is how I think about it, right? If we are on a mission to remove passwords from the world, I can go either affect 7 billion, 6 billion people one by one, or even different ways, or I can affect few big applications and I'll get the impact. Like if I go sign up and convert one big retail application to be passwordless, then suddenly I have helped so many other users use that application to be passwordless.
Hmm.
So I think our focus is more application developers. And by the way, eventually the consumers want to be passwordless, but they can only be passwordless if the app is passwordless. So our focus is developers and application rather than the consumers from that point. And that's, I
Hmm.
think, also I always believe in do what you're good at. I mean, we are experts in building enterprise level software. So I would rather go build it for the developers and the um, applications and solve that problem really, really well.
Hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting place, because in IT, I think that we easily forget that there's entities out there that just have horrendous authentication mechanisms and protocols. One comes to mind is, I'm a Illinois resident. Unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know how to look at it anymore. And you know, I had to sign my mother up for like unemployment benefits, right?
Hmm.
The process to do that was so broken. I mean, it gave me a headache. I would get physically ill when she would ask me to do it for her because it would just be so terrible. I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, there's literally so many technology technologies out there
Yeah,
that
yeah,
exist that would solve this problem. There's no way that my mom could do that on her own. There is literally zero chance. If I could barely do it and I'm an experienced professional, right, in
yeah,
security and
professional
I
in the space.
understand
Yeah,
right, like and I understand the mechanisms that they're doing under the hood. Like I'm guessing it. Um and I'm having issues with it, then there's zero chance that she would ever have a chance at doing it. It's mind boggling as to how such a cash rich enterprise as a state government can have such a poor infrastructure around their one of their central things. It's it's mind
very
boggling.
true. Yeah, no. I think it's very true. And in fact, I see on a regular basis applications with no consideration for who their user is. Do the users use it from the mobile or from the website? Slow user interface, not being clear whether you are signing up or signing in, passwords,
Mm,
just just so many challenges. And I think that is kind of the other pet peeve, which is how do you make these users onboard fast and with ease? And if you're able to eliminate password, there is a big business benefit. It's not just security because these users coming in. In fact, I was talking to a very large retailer. They were saying returning users is the highest priority for them because the cost of acquisition drops down, right? I mean, the first time they get a user who buys something, they don't make money. When they repeat purchase, that is when they make money. So these users don't come back because they're not able to log in because they created a password and forgot about it. That's a huge challenge and a huge pain
mm,
point. So I think clearly this uh, problem of not being user friendly is hurting all of us, right? I mean, I think passwords are at the center of this problem.
Hmm. Yeah, you bring up a very interesting point, and when you were mentioning that, the only thing that I could think of is that this is completely revolutionizing the customer experience,
Hmm.
irrespective of who the customer is, right? It could be a business, it could be my mom trying to log into
Yeah,
a Target website, right, to make a purchase. It could be me, right? Like it's really revolutionizing how authentication is thought of, right? You're removing the authentication responsibilities of the developer and saying, focus on
yeah,
building the best app that you can possibly build. We're going to make sure that people log in successfully, securely to your app, no matter
exactly.
what, no matter how you architect it. That's really revolutionary, honestly, because even for someone that deploys these technologies, like I have to go through and I have to learn way more about these apps than I want to, nor do I ever want to know, right? And you're saying, well, you don't need to. This will handle all of it.
Yeah. Exactly. I think, in fact, to the point where I kind of always encourage people says experience how easy it is to sign by signing up. I mean, we joke around. I think we have made it too easy. We have seen amazing sign up rates, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you make that easy for the user, and the customers will come to you, right? I mean, the whole point is when somebody comes to your website, do you want to keep an open door, or you want to put a big lock on the front door? Of course, you need to let people in securely, but imagine you have an open door where people pass by and you can identify them or authenticate them, rather than having a closed locked door and you need to fiddle with the key every time. Is like, is this the right key? Did I forget the key? Juggle out of 20 keys. That's the password analogy. Think about it, right? I mean, that's how it feels. I have 20 keys in my hand. Which one fits the lock? So that I think is the huge difference that you can make for your users when you deploy with passwordless mechanisms.
Yeah, that's that's a good analogy too. I think of I drive an Audi, right? And so
Hmm.
I log in to the Audi portal, um, and it's my password manager is supposed to automatically store the authentication credentials, but somehow in Audi's infrastructure,
Happens.
it's like the link changes or something every single time, and so it never pulls up my credentials how they should be. And now if you go in my password manager, there's 50 different things that are all the
Audi password.
same. It's terrible. It's the most frustrating
Yes,
thing in the world, especially as someone that's tech savvy like myself. It's like, how is this so broken that no one's looking at it?
very true. Very true. I think that's the reality of most sites out there.
Yeah. So, where before I let you go, this was a fantastic conversation. Where do you see Dscope going in the next 3, 4, 5 years? Are you looking to integrate with bigger SSO based services and kind of revolutionize how they're doing SSO or passkeys? What do you think the next steps
Yeah.
are for you?
So first of all, I think even now we have almost a dozen plus different authentication methods supported, from single sign-on methods like the social logins from Google's or Facebook, GitHub, you name it, and the SAML, which is a very popular B2B protocol to integrate with identity providers. Passkeys, which is a huge thing. I mean, I think passkeys are going to become very prevalent very soon. So we support those fully today in the product. But I think from a direction perspective, our intent is to continue to make it easy for app developers to build it, right? I mean, we already, I said, we want people to take minutes to integrate in their app, but then even provide more capability so that they can easily expand those use cases, build risk based flows, build connectors to other systems. So a lot is in plans for us in coming years. To me, I think our number one focus is how can I make things really easy for the developer to build very secure authentication. So least work and most value delivered is how I want to go to market and deliver to our customers.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome, and I think that that is where the most value is. For all parties, engaged there. Like that's, I mean, you're revolutionizing how people authenticate to services, how easily people can do it. Um, those are big things. Those are not easy tasks for
Yeah,
sure. So it's really
yeah,
impressive to be able to see, you know, this technology, grow and become, what it is today and where it's going to be going.
yeah. I think making things easy is very hard. That's for sure.
Yeah, people wouldn't normally think of it like that, but it is extremely hard if you've ever tried to do something easier way. You typically spend like
Yeah,
triple the time that it would normally take you to do
exactly.
it to get it right. Well, Rishi, I really appreciate you coming on. Before I let you go, how about you tell my audience, where they could find you if they wanted to reach out, what the website is of Descope, and where they can find you, and maybe if you're going to be at RSA or another security conference coming up.
Absolutely. So first of all, yes, I will be at RSA. We we don't have a booth or anything. I think we're going to be around the floor. We have a bunch of presentations. So that's RSA. Would love to connect with the audience here. Follow me on Twitter. You can easily find Rishi Bhargav. Also, our website, dscope.com. I think from my perspective, I have talked a lot on how easy it is, but don't take my word for it. That's my invitation to you. Don't take my word for it. Go build yourself an application with passwordless authentication and tell us how you feel. Always looking forward to feedback from customers and users.
Awesome. Well, Rishi, I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. It was a fantastic conversation.
Thank you.